Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Café con Gas. I am Gas. I have some nice, I didn't realize I have some flowers behind me. Hello, welcome to this evening's episode live from Cambridge Community Television. I am very excited to be here with you guys this evening. If this is the first time you're tuning into Café con Gas is a show, a weekly Be Live show. Be Live is a really great program here at Cambridge Community Television, and it allows members to create their own content, and it's all live. So if you're watching me later or streaming, this is it. The three topics are healing, arts, and diversity with occasional guests. I just got word about the new studio, and I'm really, really excited because there's going to be a Skype option for guests. So stay tuned for that. I have a guest that I'm really excited to bring to the show, and I'm just waiting for that new studio to be built because we are here from the radio room. So this is a little bit different for Café con Gas. So welcome to the fall. I'm already too hot. I'm like too cold, too hot. This is a really tough season right now. We're transitioning into the colder weather. And so I walked over, as I told you guys last episode, and I'm pulling up tonight's episode on the shared drive. Let's see. And I'm here tonight, and now it's too hot. So probably too much information for you guys, but that's kind of my emotional check-in for tonight's episode. All right, so Café con Gas. So what is Café con Gas? Let me just pull this up. Hold on one second. Café con Gas is a show that's experiencing technical difficulties at the moment. Here we go. All right. So wanted to give you guys a couple updates, just a little bit current events. The supermoon is tonight. This is a once in a generation experience. It's not going to be happening until 2033. I was just walking over and the moon is full. So please get outside. If you can't access an area or if you need to go to a rooftop, be safe. But just get outside and check out the moon. It's really, really big and beautiful. And that is my little announcement to encourage you guys to get outside. What is next on Café con Gas? We do an emotional check-in. What is an emotional check-in? It's just a way to check in with yourself and start getting familiar with expressing emotion so it's not that odd for you. So I am feeling quite happy. I am feeling quite hopeful. Where is the exhausted? I'm feeling quite exhausted. We threw a really delightful housewarming party last night, and I can tell you it was just super exhausting. A couple of tips for you guys. If you are throwing a house party, definitely communicate with your roommates, but just leave some, just know that you're not going to be able to talk to everybody. I had a really great time, but I'm also, I'm naturally an extrovert, but I'm also recharging my batteries because I got to talk to a lot of people and just bring people together. So I'm a little bit exhausted, which is in the best way possible. So for tonight, in the name of healing, arts, and diversity, fall is coming up, or fall has already arrived. So it's really interesting. I wanted to bring up this article that I saw online and has been trending on my Facebook wall and among fellow writers, and it is called Fall is the Worst Season. So, again, we talk about healing, arts, and diversity. For some of us, it's a really exciting time. You get to put on your new jacket. You get to put on nice boots, and it's crispy out. And for other people, they're getting desperate because the sun is leaving. I posted something on my Facebook page about a light box, but for some people, this is the worst season. And there's some really just golden gems in this article. And it's just saying fall is the worst season. And here are some quotes from this article, but saying, seasons are taught to us like foursquare, a perfect schematic in which every part pulls equal weight to form a harmonious whole. This is a lie. The repetition of the cycle does not imply peace. The placement of seasons matters greatly. Each must be weighed in conjunction with its neighbors. Like conversation, seasons tend to devolve, but they begin beautifully. Fall comes as temperate relief after summer, which comes as bright release after spring, which comes as capricious but blossoming happiness after so long of a cold. What I mean is that seasons always get better, with one exception. Fall is the only season which the next is definitely worse. So the article goes on to talk about how fall is basically the season where everyone, everyone is getting together and supposed to be really happy, but it's really the season that you're preparing for death. The leaves start to change only to die, and the sun, it just starts kind of to go away. So again, I just wanted to just to talk about emotional diversity, because some people are emotionally checking in and feeling great. Some people are emotionally checking in and just having a hard time. So in the spirit of that diversity, check in with each other, because just because the seasons are changing or it's back to school time doesn't mean that everybody's happy. And that's okay too, but just finding ways to support each other and also yourself, kind of making adjustments on what your routine is, getting outside, getting some sunlight. These are all really, really important things to prepare yourself for fall, which may or may not be the worst season. Last week's episode of Café con Gas, I talked about Eckhart Tolle and his realization when he was 29 years old. This is National Suicide Prevention Month. Again, I'm going to bring up the resource, Lifeline. Actually, I'm sure we'll have a great feature movie on suicide, but and also many other topics. But Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK. You can go is a suicidepreventionlifeline.org. A lot of these organizations are just built as a resource, so you can call and talk to someone besides just going directly to the emergency or talking to 911. These hotlines are always a really great resource. There's a lot of different hotlines for survivors, and also a national NAMI hotline, National Association for Mental Illness. Also domestic violence hotlines, and always in the case of an emergency, please do call 911. So this is a really intense season. The seasons are changing. It's also National Suicide Prevention Month. It's also National Hispanic Heritage Month. So a lot of things are going on. I just feel like there's lots of different spaces to have months, but there's so many of them. So I'm just throwing you some resources for you to check out. So the next topic we're talking about, I had a really interesting discussion about leadership this week. There's this term called soft power, like the type of leadership that not necessarily the type of leadership that you build consensus. And we were just having this really interesting conversation on leadership, and the word that came out of my mouth was vulnerability. Dr. Brene Brown is someone who I've shown on a previous episode of Café con Gas, and I'm going to bring up an interview with her. I'm constantly reminding myself of her TED talk on the uses of vulnerability, the importance of vulnerability, and also encouraging others. Get vulnerable with yourself, because if you really know your story, no one can use it against you. So it's really important to get to know your vulnerability. So I've been having a lot of those discussions, and I was on the way to Café con Gas, and I was like, maybe I'll show a clip from her TED talk and some inspiration, but I wanted to go just a little bit deeper. And I wanted to go on the topic, connected with vulnerability, is shame. So something that Brene Brown studies emotions. That's her data. She's a storyteller, but she also categorizes emotions and experiences. And it's really profound. She's had a lot of interviews with Oprah, one that I'm going to play with you today. So this following interview, she talks about who deserves to hear your shame story. And it's a really, hold on one second. I'm going to lower this audio. Okay, and I'm just going to cue this up while I talk with you. Again, we're in the radio room, so this is a different studio from where I've been doing Café con Gas for the past year and a half, but thanks for tuning in. So anyways, we're talking about Brene Brown. Dr. Brene Brown studies emotions and vulnerability, and in this particular interview, she is interviewed by Oprah, and she has a book called The Gifts of Imperfection. And what's really, really powerful about this piece is that this particular clip talks about who are the people who get to deserve to hear your shame story. So in times of vulnerability, we can be vulnerable because it's a topic that leaves us, kind of feeling naked. We could also be vulnerable because we were preyed upon or a victim. There's different degrees of vulnerability. So Brene Brown, just to cue this up for you, she talks with Oprah about the gifts of imperfection and who gets to hear your shame story. So when I talk about stories, just think about it in this context. You have colleagues who you go to work, right? You go to work with, and they ask you, what'd you do this weekend? So that's a form of storytelling, get to know someone. You have your really close friends, and they say, what'd you do this weekend? And you say, oh, everything went great, but I'm really feeling this way. Or you have your family, and they say, what'd you do this weekend? And you have different degrees of relationships and intimacy. So the point of this story is that when we are the most vulnerable, or when we really need to go to someone that we trust, who can we identify that we can trust, and who really deserves to hear that story? So this is her interview, and I'm going to cue this up for you, and enjoy this clip.
open up to. So I love in Gifts of Imperfection where you say, we share a shame story with the wrong person. They can easily become one more piece of flying debris, so well said, in an already dangerous storm. We want solid connection in a situation like this, something akin to a sturdy tree firmly planted in the ground. We definitely want to avoid the following. The friend who hears the story and actually feels shame for you, she gasps and confirms how horrified you should be, then there's awkward silence.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have to make her feel better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that happen?
Oh, my goodness. Where you're like, yeah.
Oh,
so
God.
now you have to put your shingle out for that person. Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm still in shame and I'm one less friend down. I'm like, and you're gone.
The friend who responds with sympathy, I feel so sorry for you, rather than empathy. I get it, I feel with you, and I've been there. If you want to see a shame cyclone turn deadly, throw one of these at it. Oh, you poor thing. Yes. Or the incredibly passive-aggressive Southern version of sympathy. I love this. Bless your heart. Yes.
That gives me the shivers when you say that. That's
Yes.
like, I'm fixing to tear you down and God is on my side.
Yeah.
It is the worst.
We've all been there. The friend who needs you to be the pillar of worthiness and authenticity, she can't help because she's too disappointed in your imperfections because you've let her down. Yes.
Painful.
The friend who is so uncomfortable with vulnerability that she scolds, how did you let this happen? The friend who is all about making it better and out of her own discomfort refuses to acknowledge that you can actually be crazy and make terrible choices. You're exaggerating, the person says. It wasn't that bad.
Right.
Yes. And the friend who confuses connection with the opportunity to one-up you. Well, that's nothing. Listen to what happened to me. So when you open yourself up and you're vulnerable enough to share something that has shamed you, what are you really looking for?
I'm looking for the person who loves me, not despite my vulnerability and imperfection, but because of it. I'm looking for what I call my move the body friends. I'm looking for the folks who are going to show up and wade through the deep with me. And I think it's a myth that you should have more than one or two of those. You know, the TV commercials that show 15 of us laughing and doing that kind of stuff. You got one person in your life who you can call and say, I just told a bold-faced lie to someone I care about and I have no way to get out of it, and I'm in a shame storm of epic proportion. You have one person that look at you and say, all right, let's do this thing. I'm with you. I've done it. Let's talk it through. You are so lucky.
And if you have two or three, that's
Forget
it. Forget
Lottery.
it. Lottery.
Yeah. And you know what we all do, myself included, is we steamroll over those people to get the attention and appreciation of the people who will never show up for us like that.
Wow.
So like, you know, you may be my best friend and you might be all around me all the time, but those folks, those women at the mall that I don't know, they're the ones I'm really worried about.
Yeah. Trying to please or prove yourself to them. And you say, of course, we're all capable of being these friends.
Yes.
But especially if someone tells us a story that gets right up in our own shame, that's when it hits the nerve, right? You're human, imperfect, and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes. It's hard to practice compassion when we're struggling with our own authenticity or when our own worthiness is off balance.
And you know what means the most to me? What means the most to me is if I go to someone with my shame story, and my whole mantra is, you share with people who've earned the right to hear your story.
Damn, that is good.
Right?
Doggone it, that's
like, you have to earn the right to hear my story. It's an honor to hold space for me when I'm in shame. And so I want to share. And if I share with someone...
we need to just pause with that for a moment. Okay. Because this is how people get so messed up and violated. It's like the Bible says, casting your pearls before swine.
It's
true.
true.
You know, offering yourself up to people who don't deserve to have that offering.
That's right. And you have to think long and hard about who has earned the right to hear the story and with whom am I in a relationship that can bear the weight of the story.
Wow. That is powerful.
And if I go to someone and I share it and they come back with one of those bad, not helpful, not empathic answers, and then a week later, a day later, an hour later, they call and say, I didn't show up for you. You were so much in my stuff. I couldn't be with you in that. That means even more to me. We're not going to do empathy perfectly. You know, we're not going to have the right response every time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's so overwhelmingly powerful. I have to take a break. I have to just take a break right now.
So that is an interview between Oprah and Dr. Brene Brown talking about who deserves to get to hear your story. And I think it's so powerful because when you, all right, so when you are sharing a story, and it could be something you did wrong, or it could be something that you didn't do wrong and you just feel shame as a victim, thinking, oh, why did this happen to me? It's just so powerful that Dr. Brene Brown is walking us through those steps of how we can identify someone who deserves it. Because think about it, if you have a secret that you're carrying around and you have shame, the secret has a power over you. But if you're just telling everybody about the secret and not people who deserve to hear it, people who have earned your respect, people who will help you establish safety, like Oprah said, that really leads to people getting messed up. And I think what Dr. Brene Brown has to say on vulnerability is just really powerful, and something that I think that I've taken away from watching her and also watching these interviews. And I just also wanted to say another thing that is really important is, in no way am I saying, remain in silence. I'm not advocating for that at all. But in this scenario, if you have an emergency, obviously you need to report it. But I think, people recover from trauma, but it may be a one-time event. It may be a cumulative event. It may be someone who comes from a dysfunctional family and then experiences success, and it's not a part of their identity. They don't want to talk about it. It still needs to be talked about. And shame that's kept secret can be toxic, and that can make you sick. So who wants to get sick from emotions, and especially who wants to get sick from an experience that has already caused them tremendous pain? And I think that's why Dr. Brene Brown is someone who I continuously bring up time and time again, because there's so much that we can learn from her work. This is a follow-up clip on the 3 things you can do to stop a shame spiral. Again, one of the people that Brene Brown talks about not wanting to tell is the person who's afraid of their own vulnerability, and kind of asks, well, how'd you get there? And how did that happen? Some people are afraid of vulnerability, and some people aren't capable of it. And I think some of the most altruistic and giving people sometimes get caught on going to those people and trying to convince those people who really don't care for them, giving them a reason to care. So anyways, I bring up these videos, but please keep in mind that these are resources and people that I've gone to, authors that I've reread their books at different times and gained a lot. So this is a little supplement to the interview. And we talk in this clip. Oh, sorry, I'm just bringing up this audio. In this clip, she talks about what are the 3 things that we can do to stop a shame spiral. So have you ever been in the situation where you're talking to a friend and then you realize, oh, I shouldn't have said that, and oh, what am I going to say now, and oh, I got to make it better, and then you just go into a spiral and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. This is a little bit of an audio clip on how you can prevent yourself from going in that spiral, and the conclusion to Oprah and Dr. Brene's interview, which I really love and is a continuous resource for me during the week and times that I'm not doing Café con Gas. So I hope you enjoy this.
So I love this question. You mentioned gremlin thinking. This is from Allison Smella. You mentioned gremlin thinking. What's the silent language to move that aside and step into authenticity? Good question.
So men and women who had high levels of shame resilience, meaning they could totally acknowledge and move through shame without jeopardizing their authenticity, had 4 things in common. The first was they know what triggers shame for them. They know what the triggers are. Like for me, I know what the triggers are. I have stuff around motherhood and balancing work. I have stuff around appearance. Secondly, huge skill, you can reality check them. 3, you reach out and share your story. And 4, you speak shame. So just to boil it down, it's 3 totally counterintuitive things. Talk to yourself like you talk to someone you love when you're feeling unworthy. How would I talk to Ellen and Charlie in a moment of unworthiness? Would I ever, I would say to myself, God, you're so stupid, Brene, what were you thinking? would never talk to my kids that way. Talk to yourself like you talk to someone you love. Reach out to someone you trust and tell your story. Shame cannot survive being spoken. It needs 3 things to just absolutely grow exponentially.
Yeah, that's why secrets really intensify the shame. And you're as sick as your secrets, because when you're ashamed, you keep it a secret, and that just sort of festers and ends up really overwhelming your life. The shame, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you release it, that's why all those years on the Oprah show, when people come on and share things that they never shared with anybody else, you leave and you feel freer, you feel unburdened by some of it. Yes.
Absolutely. Secrecy is one of the 3 things: secrecy, silence, and judgment. Those are the 3 things shame needs to grow exponentially in our lives. The antidote, empathy. It cannot survive being spoken and being met with empathy.
All right. The 3 things: silence, shame, like silence and judgment also contributing to shame. But what I really love is that little piece where Brene says that shame cannot be survived unless it's spoken. So that's really powerful. And then I also, I'm showing this clip, but I can also take a moment to critique a little bit of it. There's an interesting moment where Oprah is relating to Brene Brown, and she's relating to how people have the types of experiences that people had on the Oprah show coming to give testimony. And what I think is really powerful, and what I want to remind people, is that secrecy, when she says that secrecy can also contribute to shame and that leads to bad things, secrecy is not to be confused with privacy. Now, like, these are so secrecy is not to be confused with privacy, not to make it this whole like bring us to like politics at the moment, but I mean just a sense of, you can speak to your shame, but you can also maintain a level of privacy. You have rights as a patient, you have rights as an individual, and you have the right to choose who you tell your story, and not everyone needs to know. But if everyone is supposed to know, that's also a path that you can take. So you have choices as long as you're speaking to someone about this issue and practicing a level of transparency, and also not negotiating, but just growing your sense of self and understanding how you're going to relate to other people and what boundaries you're going to set down. So I really, really, really like this interview. And now I have a treat for you guys. So we've talked, let's just stretch it out. We've talked about emotions. We've talked about vulnerability. We've talked about shame. These are some really intense topics as we approach the dying leaves of fall. Just like equipping yourselves. I think something beautiful about the summer is that we all burst and everybody gets to be outside, and it's go, 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 go. And then what I'm getting used to right now in the transition now to the colder months is that it takes a little bit longer for me to walk everywhere, and I'm just working through that. So that's really powerful. All right, so I have a little bit of I got some music to send us off with in the name of healing the arts and diversity. I also have an article which I'm gonna bring up next Café con Cas. This happens sometime behind the scenes. I'll have some things prepped to talk about. And tonight, there's going to be a follow-up. There's going to be a follow-up to our shame discussion and who you get to choose to hear your story. And there's also going to be a transition to the new studios. I'm really excited. So yeah, I wanted to end tonight's episode with the arts, because any time that you're doing really intense emotional healing work, I would highly recommend, this is my personal recommendation, you're going to tune in, right? You're going to talk about like big things like shame, and you're also not going to tune out, but you're going to learn how to like disengage, right? Because the way that I see anything related to healing or larger movements to shift people's perception or just like promote healing, I think it's really important that like you go in to do the work, but you also know when to recharge your batteries and how you need to do that. So I like to really engage in spaces. I'm very much an extrovert, but I know that I do reach a certain point where I need to kind of retreat, and sometimes not for too long. But when I do that, I love to do that with music. So for tonight's episode, bravo for watching and listening to, listening to this content, but hopefully it makes you think about yourself. I'm going to end tonight's video, and we're going to fade out. I'm going to say goodbye to you now and wish you guys a great week. But I'm going to play out Chronix. He's from Jamaica, and it's called They Don't Know. This is his acoustic set. I'm going to post it on my Facebook. Please like Café con Casa on Facebook. And I'm going to play this now, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And just mellow out and thank yourselves for using your brains and your hearts and trying to figure this stuff out and tuning in tonight to Café con Casa. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
And sometimes it's because our parents look at us and say,
oh, Brene Brown is in the background talking about parents. All right. So maybe not that. No, maybe not that just yet. Maybe not that just yet. Hold on one second. All right. All right. All right. So Chronix. Have a great night, guys. See you next week.
They don't know. They see me smile. They don't know what I feel inside.